Too High McFly presents The Fear of Fear.
That's right. Lock your doors and check underneath your bed because it's another terrifying episode of Terror-Phobia right here on the Too High McFly podcast channel, a segment dedicated strictly to horror movies. I'm your host, Kevin Lyons.
I'm Jose Ramos.
And The Intruder just opened up over the weekend. It's a psycho type of movie, and we thought this was a great opportunity to start talking about psycho killer movies because they're their own thing, right, Jose?
Yeah, it's always good to see entertaining to see a movie with a really good psychopath.
Yeah, because it's so easy to have monsters and like these supernatural things coming in to kill you because it's just obviously going to be so scary. But there's just something so much more frightening than just like the regular person next door who's just fucking psychotic and just wants to kill you. Like, that's creepy.
Well, with things like monsters, aliens, and even supernatural to some people, it's easier to dismiss.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy to dismiss someone just losing their shit.
Yeah, because it happens every fucking
Exactly.
day. It's just somebody has a bad day or they're just born differently with their fucking chemical imbalance. They're just fucking crazy and they just kill people. So it's kind of funny too because a lot of movies that are like that aren't necessarily horror movies, but there are some that are considered that because, just that fact. So let's talk about what makes a good psycho. What do you think makes a good psycho in a movie?
For me, one factor is intimidation factor.
The intimidation factor?
You can't have a good psychopath unless he's or she is intimidating.
Okay.
That's what helps them strike fear.
And like, what kind of intimidation do you mean? Like physically intimidating or just like mentally intimidating?
I think a lot of it is, fearing for your life. With psychopaths and the ones we see in these movies, there's a certain unhingedness.
Yeah.
It's like they're seeing red the whole time, and that becomes unpredictable.
For me, what makes a good psycho is how likable they are. It's just like, because it's so easy to find somebody who just looks crazy and they're obviously crazy, but the ones that figured out how to look normal and blend in and still engage in their darkness that's what makes a good psycho for me, especially if the psycho is charming. Because they just invite themselves right into your life. Like, because it's so easy to prey on ignorance these days. You're like, there's no way that guy would have done it. He's a nice guy. Look, he's got a family. He's like, he always says hi. He brings donuts for everybody. That's the little Dexter fucking right there.
That's the facade of it.
Yeah.
And I think part of another thing, difference between just a regular killer and a psycho is that warped mentality that comes from it. So like even, they have the charisma, they have the niceness, but there's a warpedness in their mentality that causes them to go dark, whether it's an obsession with someone or a situation or whatever it is. They're able to go from 0 to 10.
And this is a big difference between how we're talking about monsters and psychos. Usually monsters, there's a sadness to them, and the audience usually feels that. But in like a lot of psychotics, it's hard to get that feeling from the audience.
You get more of an uneasiness.
Yeah, because they're scared, you know? But like Frankenstein and other, like even Jason, because Jason was, he was tortured as a kid. He was mentally challenged and you kind of, there's that sadness for him. But psychos, I'm not saying that the things that led people to their psychotic breakdowns isn't sympathetic. It's just harder for the audience to feel that when they just see somebody who's just so psychotically evil and just wants to kill people.
I agree.
All right. Well, let's talk about like the different types of psychos that are in movies.
Well, I think one type of psycho is, I call it the slow burn psycho.
Like,
so this is the type of psycho doesn't start off, at least when you're watching the movie, doesn't start off a psycho.
Yeah.
It's not a person who's acting nice and is psychotic. They start off okay.
Yeah.
And then due to events, they slowly throughout the movie progress into psycho level. So some examples are The Shining.
Yeah, okay.
He didn't start off as a psycho. It's the events that were happening and, the stuff with the hotel, that slowly became a psycho. And then Ryan Reynolds in Amityville Horror.
Oh, okay.
He started off as just a regular dad, but the events of the house slowly pushed him to psycho territory by the end of it.
But a lot of those too they have supernatural things behind them. You know, but for me, what like I just the psycho killers that I find scarier are the ones that don't have any type of supernatural. The ones that are just like Billy Loomis from Scream. You know what I mean? Like the ones that they're just crazy and they just want to kill people because they're bored. Like that's fucking so. It sends chills down my spine just knowing that the motherfucker next door is probably doing that.
They're the ones that want chaos just for chaos. The Joker psychos, pretty
Yeah.
much. Another type would be, and you kind of touched on this a bit. I call it the Two-Face psycho.
Okay.
So you're the ones that these are your charming. They present one facade, one image. And then on the other end of it, then they've got their psychotic behavior, but it's not what they present to other people.
It's like the narcissist psycho.
And these are the ones that I feel sometimes could be the most scary.
Yeah.
You know, so we have like, David from Fear will fall into this category.
Oh, we're definitely talking about
Yeah.
Fear today, 1990s.
Yeah. But he was that.
Yeah.
You know, he had a charming, he was the Two-Face. Ripley from the talented Mr. Ripley. You know, he had one image he put forward. So is that, that Two-Face cycle. So that's another version. Another one is the manipulated psycho.
Okay.
So this would be, I would say Norman Bates would fall into this. You know, he was manipulated by his mom and abused and all of that, and that slowly turned him into what he became.
But not throughout the course of the movie. It was just like his actual character development what brought him there.
Exactly, to a point that, he was still seeing his mother.
Yeah. Did you ever watch that TV series they made about that?
No.
It was like the prequel to Psycho. I didn't check it out either. I heard it was okay, I think. I mean, because it was going for a while. I just never checked it out.
I heard good things about it. It had... who's this? I can't think of the... Oh, yes. It's the actor. He's in some medical show now where he plays a guy who's on the spectrum.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, yep.
yeah.
I've seen. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so he's on that right now. But I did hear good things about it. I think I was just kind of disillusioned after the remake of Psycho, where they just went shot for shot.
Oh, with Vince Vaughn?
Yeah,
He's jerking off.
They went shot for shot and still made it worse.
You could hear that.
Yeah.
Like while he's watching her shower. It's so gross.
So yeah, there was that. I think the last type of, I'm sure there's more, but the last type of psycho that I can think of is the obsessed psycho. So this is the one where they have a target, whether it's a person or a thing.
That's also David from Fear.
Obsessed. Yeah, so some can fall into multiple categories. We also have like Misery would be an example. Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
We have where you have an obsessed psycho. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Yeah, and that was something I wanted to bring up to you because some of these psycho killers, they're not filmed in the style of horror. A lot of them are just kind of filmed like thrillers almost, And like, do you still consider those like horror, even though they're not filmed that way? Because it's the same subject matter. You know what I mean?
I think it can be a hybrid. It can be, elements of it. I think some of it comes down to kill count.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. But
because I think I would put like Misery more horror than something like The Talented Mr. Ripley, which would be leaning more towards thriller. But he is kind of a psycho.
Yeah.
But Misery, like, that's some scary shit.
That is some scary shit. But like you said, body count is just him. And he doesn't die. She never like really killed anybody
But
except for the cop.
torture aspect of it.
Yeah, the torture. That's fucking twisted, man. But yeah, there are some movies that don't do that. And something that I want to talk about, like how we want to talk about Fear, right? And I liked it because it wasn't filmed as a horror movie. But he definitely felt like a horror movie. You know what I mean? It was just the situation of it, and it was dated. I remember when that movie came out. I was kind of into it. I really liked it because it was a new type of like horror type of movie, but it wasn't horror. It was just what he was doing, how manipulative he was. Was just so creepy, but I remember we watched it just over the weekend just to refresh.
So 90s.
It was so 90s. It was so 90s, but like that always puts a smile on my face. I don't care how 90s something is. I just remember the dialogue between Reese Witherspoon and her dad was like I remember watching the scene. I'm like, I don't remember anything that was said between these two characters, But damn, you know what? I think that was probably Mark Wahlberg's best role.
it's a role I definitely always remember.
Yeah,
Like, no matter
right?
what, if at any point anyone was to tell me, name 3 Mark Wahlberg movies, Fear would always be one of those 3.
Yes, let me in fucking house.
Yeah.
One of our, like, I remember when we were watching that, I posted a screenshot of us watching it with when he's in the fisheye door peephole thing, and he's like, "Let me in fucking house." And then somebody commented that was actually just in their blooper reel, and the director saw it at a party. Like, I guess they were partying one night. And he saw it. He goes, "We're putting that in the movie," and they ended up using it.
And we're all the better for it.
And that was like the most. That was like that. You got to see that real crazy behind him because he just lets loose like right in that door.
You see both sides because he talks calm, flips out, goes back to calm.
Yeah.
In like a matter of a split second. And that's psycho.
And that is like the most iconic part of that movie that I remember. After all these years, I just remember like them looking through the peephole in the door, and he's just there, just talking to him. He's just like, "Just let me in fucking house." It was just so creepy.
And in that scene, that's when it shifts more towards horror because you have them in the house barricaded. You know, it's the same thing if there would have been a monster, except it's humans on the outside trying to get in and trying to kill them, and then them fighting for their lives.
And he was so fucking charming. Well, 90s charming.
Yeah.
I mean, you could smell that bullshit lines from him a mile away, especially now.
Nowadays, it's creepy.
He's like, "What do you mean no behind those beautiful eyes of yours?" It's just like, oh my God, when he's laying it on strong, you just can't help but laugh at all of his fucking liners. But I mean, that's something that a lot of people go through. That's an abusive relationship. His was heightened a lot, but I don't see that being any different than things that happen all over the world. You know, I mean, there are people who are abusive, they're controlling, but that's what these narcissists do is they make you feel sorry for them, even though they just like hit you. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm so sorry, and they're so charming. You just like, oh, all right, come on.
I mean, even to the point at the end when he's showing up and he's already done all this shit. Like, there's no going back. And he shows up at the door, fake crying. Like, "I just want to explain myself. It's a misunderstanding." And just like, no, like, there's no going back here. Why are you still trying? But it's that warped mentality where he's like, "I can still recover from this."
My favorite part of watching that movie with you guys is I forgot that he did this. The first night that he meets Reese Witherspoon, they're at like a club. And for some reason, like the club gets broken up by cops and everybody's scattering. When usually parties are like, all right, they just break it up and everybody just go home. But they're gonna arrest 2,000 of us. Hurry up and go, you know. But like they're hanging out on. They drove off and she's like, "I gotta get home. It's late." And then he reaches over to her fucking wristwatch and he just turns the dial so the clock goes back. And you just go, "That's not how time works." And I was laughing. I couldn't even take the rest of the movie seriously because of how funny that was, because it made you think like maybe he actually thinks that if he turns back time, that's actually turning back time. And I was just like, oh. And then later on in the movie, he does it again. When he meets the dad, he's finally at the house and he's in his office like, "Hi, what was his name? Mr. Walter, Mr. Walker? Was it Walker?
Mr. Dad.
Mr. Dad. and he's just like, "All right." He's like, her curfew's at 11. I want her home by 11. He's like, "Yeah, no problem. All right." And then the dad turns around. And I forgot that he did this. He just reaches down to his clock on his desk and he just turns it back a half an hour. We're like, he's at it again.
Yeah. And it worked.
He's a time bandit. Like, that's his super villain power. But that was just funny. I mean, like, it's so weird because so much of that movie wasn't horror, but the third act was total horror. You know, what was creepy about him was that you just got to see the relationship build, and you got to see how kind of evil he was after a while. And a lot of that was just him. I mean, I've know people like that when I grew up. There were people that were just fucked in the head, and they were locked in rooms, and they would literally. Remember when Mark Wahlberg was just like, they just put me in a foster home after foster home, and then like, you know what? I didn't like walls, so I just started knocking them down until eventually they just stopped putting me behind walls and just let me go and kick me out of my ass. I fucking know people like that I grew up with, especially in the Boston area. Yeah. I know people like that. It's fucking crazy, and then, you know, getting to that third act was like straight horror because they're all trapped in the house and him and his fucking gang buddies are trying to break down and get in and fucking kill them and rape them and shit. It's fucking so sick.
And this is where, you know, he became fully unhinged. Like the facade was gone. He
Yeah.
was seeing red, and he had one goal in mind, and that's her. Because he puts the dad down at one point, and he's attacked the whole family. She almost got raped by his friend, which he then shot in front of her, and he's still calming like, "No, it's okay. Come over here, Dad.
Yeah.
Say bye to your dad. Say, hey, Dad,
Come
we're
over
gonna
here."
go live our life."
Yeah. Come over here and kiss your father, but goodbye, Nicole, all right?
Yeah. So in his mind, he thought he was still like, "Oh, I'm still doing the right thing because
Yeah.
we belong together."
It's just because that charm worked for him so much. That's like his weapon. It's so fucking creepy. And the way that he died when he got thrown out that window and he landed on the rocks, like by the lake, that was like, it was kind of iconic in a way because it was a really cool shot of seeing him fly through the window and then like out past the yard and onto the fucking rocks. It was just a creepy type of, it was just a creepy imagery, And so that movie halfway holds up. A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm more for the nostalgic
It's
reasons.
still entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it's still entertaining to watch, especially his cheesy pickup lines. So let's talk about some of our other favorite psychos in movies. What do you got?
We also have American Psycho.
Oh,
Patrick
yeah.
Bateman.
That was a good one, and I haven't seen that in a while. But the end, was it revealed that it was all on his head?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what makes, and that's what I wanted to bring up to you. I'm like, is he really a psycho if he imagined the whole thing?
Yeah.
He's having psychotic thoughts.
Yeah.
It played out psychotic in his head, the whole action. But if it is imagined at the end, can we consider him a psycho?
Maybe because you don't know if all of it was in his head. They just showed that one part because maybe he did do some of that stuff because because the cops coming after him, that was revealed to be fake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, weren't people missing? There were like people who were missing.
I have to rewatch it, but from what I recall, I could have sworn like it all ended up in his head. Like some of the people that he killed didn't they show up at the office like at the end?
Yeah.
In there.
Oh, that's right. I have to watch it again.
But then
too.
yes, even if it was imagined and it was all in his head, if he's thinking that detail and that far, how long before he puts that to action?
But another thing where it didn't matter if it was in his head or not was that this is the movie that was letting you inside the mind of a killer. You were going along his thought process. I mean, because he was monologuing, he was narrating the movie while he was doing it. It was really cool to see, and some of it it's just classic cinema. That movie is like iconic, and it's not, people wouldn't automatically just think of that as a horror movie right away. I'm like, oh yeah, that does count as a horror movie, even though it was a psychological thing. But yeah, there was a lot of bodies in that one. Let's watch that again.
Yeah, I'm down.
I love watching Christian Bale unhinged because he's so believable. Because we've heard the audio recordings of him on the Terminator say, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, you didn't know that he's just like, he can just snap, and when he plays that type of character, it just makes it that much more believable.
And we heard that audio, but we didn't see what was in his head.
Oh my god, I wish that was on the Batman set. Just imagine him screaming at somebody in a Batman costume.
Still using the voice. But that I definitely, I think we should rewatch that. That's a classic one. We also have, we have to talk about The Shining. We have to talk about
absolutely.
Jack Torrance. And that's one of the ones that I put in the slow burn psycho in there. And then there's always debate about this movie. Some people believe that he already had those tendencies within him, and then they came out when he was over there. And then some people believe that it was a supernatural aspect that made him psycho. So this is one of the movies that is debated both ways in there. But in the end of the day, he still ends up a psycho at the end, one way or the other.
Yeah, and that was one of those other brilliant casting choices because Jack Nicholson, he kind of has that look, you know what I mean? Not to associate him, like, just to say, oh, that person looks crazy, because that's not a nice thing to say. But he just has that type of...
He looks like you should watch your back.
Yeah, definitely. He was the Joker.
Yeah.
definitely. But yeah, the Shining. I've been meaning to watch that again. I haven't seen that in a long time. It was cool to see the callback to The Shining in Ready Player One. Though that scene was really cool.
I'm glad they added that, even though it wasn't in the book.
And they're doing a sequel to The Shining. I think they're already making it.
Yeah, because the book exists.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the book exists, and
That was also written by Stephen King.
yeah, and then so I know they are working on the sequel based off of that book. I don't know how much they'll go off of the book.
Oh man. All right. Some of the, like one of the ones I like to call the first ones are basically Pamela Voorhees from Friday the 13th. I mean, when you say Friday the 13th, you think straight like monster movie because it's Jason, but the first movie was just his mom who went nuts because her son died. And that technically is a psycho killer movie, but that's more like the straight horror type of things. And then it escalated to this big Jason's a zombie monster. And it's so different than the first movie. But that's why I just wanted to give Pamela Voorhees a shout out on that one.
And that's what started. I mean, that would count. You know, she kind of lost her mind.
Yeah.
It was due to tragedy, but she kind of lost her mind. And the fact that what happened to her before, she then associated with like all the counselors.
Yeah.
And was going after all of them. That's an unhingedness right there.
And also seeing her channel her son Jason, because she almost like, she's like, kill her, mommy, kill her. So you can see that she's mentally snapped and she's channeling the voice of her dead son. You know, that's like kind of creepy too. And Michael Myers from Halloween, that's literally a psychotic person who escapes a hospital and just goes and kills people. Like that's what it is, because it's much more scary when it's something that is more likely going to happen than, you know, somebody rising from the dead and fucking eating your brains.
That is true. And then with Norman Bates, so you get the reverse of that, where it's him then channeling his mom.
Yeah. Yeah, what was it? The writer of the first Friday the 13th said he did that for Friday the 13th. He's like, let's look at Psycho. It was a guy who was like channeling his dead mom. Let's just switch that. A mom channeling her dead son. So like Psycho is a huge influence to modern horror, because it was one of the first horror movies that took place in like modern times and not Gothic castles with like the Universal monsters and stuff.
And I mean, it still holds up.
Yeah, it does. It's fucking creepy. Have you ever been to that house? Have you ever go to the studio tour?
No,
it's
I
right down the
haven't.
street, man. When Jurassic World opens up, when the new park opens up, like we should all go down there.
It's in Burbank?
It's
it's
right on
Studio
Lancashire.
City? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's like 20 minutes away. It's not even, dude. It's like right down the street.
I'm down. I'm down to check it out. I mean, the only one I've gone to was the Nightmare on Elm Street house in Hollywood.
Dude, I love going to the tours, doing that. I've been to the Michael Myers house. I've been wanting to go to the Nightmare on Elm Street one. And there's another Friday the 13th one from part 4, The Cabin. Apparently it's on Topanga somewhere, like just right down the 101.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but we should definitely do some more set location tours. Those are always fun, man. I love doing that stuff. But anyway, let's get back to the psychos.
The other one I have here is Alex Forrest. This is the woman from Fatal Attraction.
Okay, you know what? I've never seen it.
You haven't?
I've never seen Fatal Attraction. I'm totally down to watch it, though.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't know how well it holds up.
Yeah.
But I remember basically what it was is he has an affair with her, and then he just leaves her. He was like, all right, I'm done with you.
Okay.
And goes back to his wife. She's not willing to accept that. And she becomes obsessed. And that's basically what the movie is her obsessed over him and trying to get him at all costs possible, even if it means trying to eliminate a few people left and right to do it. But yeah, that's a good Psycho from the 90s.
Another one that we had mentioned that we were going to save for our baseball podcast, the baseball movie podcast, is The Fan.
I just watched that this week.
Yeah, I want to watch that again too with Robert De Niro. I mean, that's such a good concept for it, because there's some sports nuts out there, and why wouldn't it just transfer over? Why wouldn't somebody psychotic obsessed over a sports star? But it's like he wasn't even trying to kill him. He was just trying to kill everybody around him because he wanted him to play good. You know what I mean? Fucking creepy.
Yeah, he was, because that was the only part in general that wasn't falling apart in his life. You know, he had lost his marriage. He pretty much was very limited in seeing his kid, which he did care about his kid. So all he had was his giants.
Yeah.
So he was so not in touch with reality, that he felt his actions can affect the Giants season and this player in there, where he goes after the player because
Benicio del Toro?
No, well, he goes after Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, because that's his favorite player.
Yeah, he goes after him. I think his name was Rayburn or something like that.
Yeah, Bobby Rayburn.
Yeah, he goes after him because he didn't thank him. He didn't give him credit for coming out of his slump.
So weird. But there are fans like that.
He even ends like that at the end. He was like, "You could have said thank you," and then he dies.
Fucking creepy.
But yeah, you're right. That's a good example of a movie of psychopath.
There was one I saw too. I forget the name of it, but Ray Liotta played one. He was a cop, and I think it was a Kurt Russell and his wife were living in. I might be wrong, but I remember it was Ray Liotta was a wife. I was a cop, and he was stalking like this new couple that moved in the neighborhood, and he was just obsessed with the wife, and like he just started being creepy. But anyway. Yeah. Do you have any more on the list of psychos, or should we just start talking about the Intruder?
Yeah, let's get into Intruder. I think we covered some of the big ones. I mean, there's so many psychos in movies out there. We can talk about this all day.
All right. So Dennis Quaid starred in a new movie that opened up this weekend called The Intruder. And you know what? I like Dennis Quaid. He's great. But this movie is about a guy who owns this really nice house over in Napa Valley. It's a big compound almost, and he's selling it to this new young couple that wants to live there and start a family, and he just won't leave the house. And he just keeps on coming back, and so they're trying to make it like this horror thriller where he's just obsessed with the house. So we were kind of on the fence about going to see this movie. We saw the trailers and we were just like,
especially I had seen, so I looked up the info on it beforehand.
Okay.
So it's directed by someone called Deon Taylor. Two movies that I was able to recognize just from reading it were Chain Letter.
I've never heard of that. That sounds awful.
And Meet the Blacks, which was like
that was a comedy, wasn't it?
It was the parody version of The Purge.
Okay. Yeah. I think I saw a poster for that.
And it was that. And then the writer, he did Passenger. We were talking about Wesley Snipes earlier, but he did Passenger. He wrote Passenger 57 and Money Train in there. But he did a movie not too long ago with Beyonce. Like he wrote the movie called Obsessed. With Beyonce, and it was like Fatal Attraction, but like black Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
In there, and this woman was obsessed with her husband, and
they should have just called it Black Fatal Attraction.
But yeah, so you wrote that. So looking at that, I'm like, I don't know. Not a bunch of classics here. But yeah, this is that. It was PG-13 on that, so we weren't gonna get too violent. Too
I didn't even
intense
notice the rating. I just noticed. Should we just get into what we thought about it?
Let's do it.
I thought it was awful. The movie was so bad, dude. It was like they were trying so hard to make a good movie, and they just broke all the rules to what it is that maybe the guidelines to make a good movie. And the characters were awful. Actually, the only good one was Dennis Quaid.
It was to the point I started trying to list the good, the bad, and then just random thoughts. I could only think of two good things.
What was your good things?
One was Dennis Quaid as a psycho.
Yeah, I like him as a psychopath. I just want to see him in a better movie for that.
He did a good job of... he was kind of that two-faced psycho and the obsessed psycho all at once. And he did a good job of being charming, but then when they weren't looking, you see the darkness in there, and you see it escalate over it, and the delusions come through. So he portrayed that very well. The other one, it was like a half good. And it was the setting of the place. There was potential in the setting.
And that's something that goes with my bad. And it's more about their execution, because the setting, like that house, you're talking about the house, right?
Yeah, the house, the property, just the look of it was the good for me.
This property was so beautiful. It was that looked so awesome. It'd be such a great house for a horror movie, but the way they were shooting it the way they shot it was just, it felt like they didn't do the property justice. Like with a big property like that, it felt like they should have shot more like wide lens, like really shown you the property, made it its own character. But everything was just so closed, and it's just like, I want to see give me a helicopter view of the house just so I can see what the whole layout looks like. Like, film that properly so you can see that.
Use the woods that you have there.
It almost felt like they were filming for inside outside. You know what I mean? Because like inside you have tighter spaces, and that's what they were needed to film. I don't know, man. I just didn't. Some of it at night with the lights I thought looked kind of cool, especially down the pathway. But I was just like, man, how did they not just shoot that better, the outside stuff? Because it's a beautiful house, and we didn't get to see all of it.
And that was actually one of my bads too. My bad was a waste of the setting.
Yeah.
The good was the potential there
Yeah.
and the look, but the waste, that was one of my bads on there.
I actually, you know what, and we're shitting on this movie. I actually like the actors. I thought the actors were okay. I just hated the script they were given to deal with. I mean, like, the main guy, the husband, what was his name? I forget his name, but he wasn't bad. He didn't
That was
annoy
Michael
me.
Ealy, is the one who played him.
Okay, yeah. I mean, as an actor, I think he's okay, but his dialogue and all their decision making was just so like awful. It just made me hate them. But his wife, who plays
Megan Good, I think is her name. Megan Good.
she was in Shazam.
Yeah.
For spoiler alert, she plays the grown-up version of the little girl. I forget what her name was, but like she was good in this. She was charming, but it's just like, again, their dialogue was so forced, and the exposition was so forced. I mean, like, they were telling their backstory of each other while they're talking to each other, and it's just like, it's so forced. It's just like, oh my god.
I still remember. So there's this one scene outside of the house where the husband is starting to suspect a little something due to his friend kind of making him paranoid about it.
Yeah.
So he puts up he starts installing these lights outside, these like floodlights, motion sensor lights outside. And so Dennis Quaid's character comes and he's upset, and he was like, you should get a gun, like if you need protection, you're scared, instead of like putting these lights. And the normal response to that is, oh no, I don't want a gun. But instead, he goes, I don't want a gun. When I was 12, my brother was killed by a... And he goes into this giant story. It was like, no one asked you that. Like, why did you go into a monologue about when you were 12 and your brother? Just say, I don't want a gun.
Yeah.
And that's that forced exposition you were talking about.
Absolutely. It was a lot of that. And then again, when the wife... Well, first of all, before I get to that, just that situation when Dennis Quaid came driving up when they were drilling holes to put those security lights on. It's like, hey, don't put holes in my house. That movie would have ended for me right there. Yeah. Like, bro, get the fuck off my property. This is not your house anymore. I'm going to knock you in the face if you don't get the fuck out of here.
See, you would have had more patience than me. For me, it would have ended when I find out he went into my shed and took the lawnmower out.
Oh, yeah. Well, that too. But, like, I mean, that's one thing, you're not there. But if I had seen him again right after, I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you doing on my property? I gave you $3 million. Get the fuck off my property. Like, that's exactly what I would have said.
And what I was wondering in that scene when he's putting up these lights, because he thinks, I mean, he was correct, but he thinks he's being watched by Dennis Quaid because that's what his friend told him. So he puts on these motion sensor lights. I'm like, bro, you paid $3.2 million for this house. Put some damn cameras.
I thought they were cameras.
No,
they weren't cameras. They were just lights.
It was motion sensor lights. We never once saw them looking at cameras or anything like that. You know, when the lights came on outside, instead of rushing outside, they would have looked at the cameras. Is anyone out there? But it's like, you paid $3.2 million for a house. You can't install cameras. Problem solved. You can see him creeping through the cameras, watching the property.
Fuck, man. But again, going back to some of those like forced exposition too, because one of the forced story plot points that they were putting out there was like the tension between the wife and the husband. Like, oh my god, like out of nowhere they made him a cheater like halfway through the movie. Like, he's like, I'm gonna stay late at work, and she's like, you texted me, you didn't call me. He goes, last time you texted me, you know what happened when you texted and you didn't call. And then he goes, okay, that was way over a year ago. I cheated one time. We did marriage therapy. They're just giving all this backstory. It's just like, oh my god,
no one talks that way.
Fucking forced. Nobody talks that way. You're right.
And that was actually one of my bads. I'm like, the whole trying to create marital turmoil aspect was useless. There was no payoff on it. You never believe she's gonna hook up with Dennis Quaid's character at all.
Yeah.
So why throw in the turmoil to be like, oh, maybe she will because she's having trouble with her husband?
Yeah.
Like, there was never a payoff. There was no point in it. It didn't really affect the story except for scenes like that.
Well, a lot of that build up too, because you know how you're talking about the psycho killers that over the course of the movie they start getting more sadistic and start doing more things. This didn't like he was just like weird off the bat, and he was just weird the whole movie until like the very end when he was trying to kill them. Like that, like there was no other thing other than like he tried to hit him with a car when he went jogging one morning. Which was so dumb because they didn't show us enough of the town and how many people were in there. There was a couple of shots when maybe they were walking through the town, but like so much of it was at that house and on that road where they're secluded. And then he gets hit by the truck and it's so obviously Dennis Quaid, and then he just drives off. I remember laughing so hard on that part because he just like he hit him, and then and it wasn't even Dennis Quaid's truck. It was another truck that he was driving in that, but he hits him. He goes flying off the road, and then he puts the car in park, and then he just runs away. Why wouldn't you just drive the car somewhere else and ditch it in the woods somewhere? Like he just left it there at the scene and he just went running away. Like what the fuck is the? And then they're all like, "We don't know who hit me." How about the only person who's been talking to you in this fucking town?
And to top it off, like we see it happen. He like nut hits him in like the back shoulder. He falls down a hill of like 4 feet, maybe, rolls down the hill, and he's unconscious.
Yeah, he was going pretty slow. I mean, like, he slowed down, and then he didn't even hit him with the front of the car. He, like, drove past him a little bit and then kind of, like, bumped him. It was just so stupid. So there was so much of this movie that just angered me.
Well, and then you mentioned when they were walking in the city, and this is it's just, again, back to the writing, where it's convenience for convenience sake. So he tells him he's staying at the Royal Hotel in town. But we find out he's not. He's living under the house the whole time. But that one time they go into town and he's like, hey, let's go check up in the hotel. He happens to be there at the bar.
Yeah.
Even though he's not really staying there. But it was like conveniently the one time they spontaneously go, he's
check.
there at the bar.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. It's so weird. It's such a weird movie. I mean, like, but you got to hand it to Dennis Quaid. He did a really good job just making you feel uneasy as soon as he walked onto the property. That is the one really good thing they did in this movie. As soon as Dennis Quaid walked on camera and onto the property, you automatically just felt awkward. Just like, well, oh my God, would you just walk onto somebody's property and just act like you still lived there? It was so weird.
But that led to a problem, though. Like, he did such a good job of just being weird and making us uncomfortable as viewers with his actions that it just made it that much more annoying that, like, Megan Good's character was still making the decisions she was doing. Like, this guy is so creepy, showing up and breaking these boundaries, showing up at their house. Her husband is warning her the whole time. The friends are warning her. And then you still have a moment where the husband got hit by the car. He's in the hospital. She's showering. He comes to the door. She goes in a robe to the door, and he's like, I brought you pizza because your husband is out there.
I heard he was hit by a car. From who? As soon as he got hit by a car, he went to the hospital. He didn't talk to anybody. They don't know anybody in the town.
Gives her the pizza. He doesn't even ask. He just gives her the pizza, and she's like, well, it's a big pizza. You want to come in? You're letting this motherfucker into your house.
There was so much. There was so much of that was just so like, oh, like it to the point where you want to see these people die because they deserve it. Horror movies aren't really supposed to do that unless they make it like a Friday the 13th, where you're watching these characters specifically to see how they're gonna die. You want to make a movie good, make us care about these characters. That way, it's gonna bring up the tension even more, which they didn't do. And it has nothing to do with the actors. It was all 100% in the writing.
Exactly. This movie was the equivalent of someone going up to an alligator and just keep poking it. Eat me. Eat me.
Yeah.
Eat me. Eat me. Like, that's what they kept doing with their decisions. They were just like, hey, don't you want to kill us? Here, come in my house, kill me. And Dennis Quaid just wouldn't do it.
Damn. Well, another good thing this movie did was actually made me a little bit more aware of that lead actress who played the wife, who's also in Shazam. I like her. I think I would like to see her in more movies.
I've seen her in a few other things in there. Yeah, so she is good and she's hot.
Yeah, she is very hot, but she has that smooth charisma to her when she's talking. You know what I mean? It's just like you just want to have a conversation with her. You want to talk to her because she's so nice. But yeah, that's basically it. And the whole, I like the reveal of that there were secret passages in the house, which I called. I didn't tell you that, but when I was watching it, I'm like, there's gonna be secret passages in these. They always are in these old houses. I grew up back east. I grew up in old houses, and they you know about these little secret rooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then they I had a feeling when he's showing them the house, and for some reason he focuses on the towel rack closet.
Oh yeah, the linen closet in the hallway.
I'm like, why attention to that?
And he also said, "This is yours," and he points to it. This is yours, and it was kind of like, oh, subtle, but it was just so long and boring.
You know something else that got me? This is one of the. It was, and I guess this director has a history of doing this with other movies. It was the music video sex scene. We got two of them that fit nothing within there. It was just like, hey, for some reason, let's just have them have sex now. Let's put in some smooth R&B and hip hop, and let's just go to town. And then we'll get back to the movie.
Well, Dennis Quaid. Okay, so we should start wrapping this up pretty soon. But actually, I just remembered another cool thing that they actually did in the movie that I liked. A lot of this it didn't feel like a horror movie, but there was one kind of like jump scare that I thought was really cool. Is when after he installed those lights on his house, and Dennis Quaid was just like he told them like, yeah, sometimes kids party back there on the property, and you kind of have to go chase them off. And so like when they heard noises, he goes running out there and he turns on the floodlights go on, and as he's running to the edge of the property, he can hear kids laughing and jumping in the trucks and going. And as their car lights turn towards them and the lights flash over him, and it just quickly flashes on Dennis Quaid, who's just standing there the whole time, and then it goes off in the shadow. That was probably the best shot in the movie and the most effective.
I agree.
But other than that, it's so funny because after the movie obviously ended with a dumb fucking line, because they built up that he hates guns because his brother died, and then finally he gets the best of Dennis Quaid by hitting him in the face with a baseball bat, and he's standing over with a shotgun, and his wife is calling 911, and like, you don't think he's gonna shoot him, but we all knew he was because he had such a problem with guns, and his wife's like, hurry up, there's an intruder. My husband just shot an intruder, and it was like basically her saying like, shoot his ass, and then she just hangs up, and then he just kills him, and then the movie just ends, and then
we get a hip hop song.
But I will give this is so funny because at the end during the credits, while the credits were rolling, they were doing different stylized shots of different parts of the house, and those look chilling. Like that, the one time they actually really, really did show the house in a creepy way. They did it during the closing credits. I'm like, why the fuck didn't you shoot like this during the movie? It at least would have made it feel like the atmosphere of a scary movie. But yeah, that's it. I mean, what a bad movie. Oh, man. We should have done This Is Bad for that.
Yeah, we should have. But, it did allow us to talk about some good psychos in time.
And it's also, we get another psycho movie coming soon, Ma. Dude, I am stoked for that. That looks like that's going to be really fucking good. I like the concept behind it. And it's just, I like the actress. I forget her name. I don't know her name, but she's so engaging just to watch her on screen. And you know that she's playing it. She's definitely playing a psycho in this. All right, I'm going to see this.
And it's like the Two-Faced psycho.
Yeah. Oh, man, I can't. When does that open up?
That's this month or next month.
I think it's May, right?
It's either May or June, one of those two.
I think it was May.
We got some good stuff coming down the pipe.
And we got the new It trailers coming out on Thursday, I heard. Stephen King spilled those beans so that they're coming out on Thursday.
And which is weird because, he watched the movie and he gives a seal of approval for the new one.
I'm so stoked for that. But anyway, I think it's time to wrap up all of our thoughts on the Intruder and just psycho movies in general. Any final thoughts, Jose?
No, I think we covered everything. I never want to see that movie again.
Me neither, but I want to see Dennis Quaid be creepy again.
Yes.
I really like
He needs
Dennis Quaid.
another chance with a better script.
He's one of those actors that can play a really good, great guy, and he can also play a really fucking bad, creepy villain.
Funny story, and I brought this up before we watched it, is I don't remember the title of it, but there's an old movie where Dennis Quaid and his wife move into a house.
Oh, Wolf Creek Manor.
Yeah, and
Stephen Dorff.
yeah, and yeah, Stephen Dorff pretty much like torturing, like stalking them and all that, and then now he is the one doing it to a couple in the house.
I think I saw Chris Stuckman on YouTube talking about this. I think that's actually made by the same company.
Is it?
I think so. I could be wrong. I have to research that, but I thought he said that. He said they made a lot of these cooking kind of movies like that, but it was literally a cookie cutter movie. It's just Dennis Quaid switched the roles. That was it.
Maybe it's the sequel. He was so traumatized the first time that now he's doing it to other people.
Maybe. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for listening. Oh, what were you gonna say, Jose?
We gotta do our 2 minutes.
Oh,
story.
that's right. We like to end every episode of Terror-Phobia with a 2-sentence horror story. We like to leave you guys feeling a little bit scared. You wrote yours for a while ago, so I'm gonna do mine first just to get the bad one out of the way. But here's one, kind of in the same vein of psycho movies. All right, here we go. I just wrote this too. I knew he was going to kill me, so I barricaded myself in my room. That's when I heard him breathing coming from my closet.
That's not bad.
That's not bad,
That's
right?
good, yeah.
Yeah, all right, cool.
That's a good horror scene right there.
Not bad, right? They spent all that time barricading themselves
Now
in the
they're
room.
stuck.
And now they're stuck, and they hear him in the corner. And that, I thought it was creepy. All right, what you got?
All right. The bed is so comfortable, I almost fall asleep. But my fear is realized when I hear a noise at the front door. My heart rate raises. My heart rate races as I try quickly and quietly to hide before the family sees me.
Oh, that's creepy. That's a good one, man. That's very that Robin Williams 1 hour photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember
That's a good
that?
movie.
Oh, that's a good psycho.
That is a psycho.
Oh, man, that is a psycho. Oh, shit. But anyway, guys, that was a good one, Jose. I like that
Thank
one.
you.
Thank you guys for checking out our latest Terror-Phobia episode right here on the Too High McFly podcast channel. If you guys are listening to us on SoundCloud or Spotify, go over to our YouTube channel. We have a bunch of short films, movie reviews. We do Game of Thrones reactions. We just have a lot of fun and a lot of content. You guys can reach out to us on Twitter at Too High McFly Productions, and you guys can maybe suggest some horror movies for us to watch and talk about, whatever you guys want to hear from Terror-Phobia. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Also, you can reach out to us on Instagram at Too High McFly Productions. Anything else? I think that's it.
Now that we got it all
We
covered.
got it all, you guys. We love doing this. We love talking about horror movies. And we can't wait to do more of these. So until then, I'm Kevin Lyons.
I'm Jose Ramos.
And thanks for listening.